This question is a flawed method of reasoning question, otherwise known as a descriptive weakening question. We are being asked by the question stem to describe why the argument is weak. Right? The reasoning is vulnerable to criticism on the grounds that the argument does something bad. Right? These are all verbs that begin the answer choices. So the argument is doing something wrong. So let's figure out what the premises are, what the conclusion is. That way we can say why the premises do not support the conclusion. In other words, what the argument is doing incorrectly. So the driver says, my friends say I will one day have an accident. Well, that's not very nice. Why? Because I drive my sports car recklessly. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's not a bad argument, right? This is, you see, like what the author is doing. The author is the driver. He's the guy behind the wheel. He's reporting to you other people's argument, right? This is other people's argument, not his argument. He tells you, this is his friend saying. His friend saying what? Well, here's the argument. You drive your sports car recklessly. Therefore, you will have an accident one day. That's their argument. Okay, but, so context renders all this stuff context. And here comes his argument. I have done some research, and apparently minivan and larger sedans have very low accident rates compared to sports cars. Right? So, whatever the minivans versus sports cars, their accident rates. Let's say this is, I don't know. I'm just gonna make some numbers up. 10% accident rate. This is like 35% accident rates. Right? This is a lot lower than this. So he concludes from this, from these premises. These are the premises. He concludes from this: trading my sports car in for a minivan would lower my risk of having an accident. Well. I don't know. Does that sound right to you? I mean, are you persuaded by this argument? I hope not, because that's not right. You know, you got to think about why the accident rates are lower here. Yeah, sure. It's true that minivans have a lower accident rates, right? Accident rates are lower for minivan drivers than they are for sports car drivers. But that doesn't mean it's the minivan itself that's causing the lower rate. That doesn't mean there's something about the sports car itself that's causing the accident rate. I mean, just use your knowledge about the world and think about it, right? Think about what kind of people drive minivans. Soccer moms, right? What kind of people drive sports cars? Well, not soccer moms, right? Probably people who are a little bit reckless, like our driver here, right? So you see, like, if the idea is that you switch over to a minivan and nothing else changes, then I don't think this accident rate would go down either, right? The fact that minivans have a lower accident rate than sports cars perhaps speaks to a causal explanation of the character of the person driving a minivan. You know, it's the driver that chooses, the safe driver. Right, the safe driver that would choose to drive the minivan, that would choose to be safe, versus a driver who would choose to be reckless, and therefore also choose to drive a sports car. Right, this is what accounts for the 10% and the 35%. Nothing to do with the minivan or the sports car. This is just a spurious correlation. Right, so what's wrong with this argument? Well, let's take a look at the answers. A says infers a cause from a mere correlation, and that's exactly right. A is a correct answer choice. Right, he identifies a correlation between accident rates going down from 35 to 10 going down as you switch from a sports car to a minivan. But that doesn't mean that the switch is going to cause you to be safer in a car. You see, for all the reasons we explained, if he's the same reckless driver, then he's going to have a higher accident rate whether he's behind a minivan or a sports car or a tank. Right, so that's why A is the correct answer choice here. Trading my sports car would lower, so this act would lower my accident rate. It's not right. B says relies on a sample that's too narrow. Well, this will be an error, but it just doesn't describe the error made here. Right, where do we rely on a sample that's too narrow? What's too narrow here? I mean, nothing. C says misinterprets evidence that a result is likely as evidence that the result is certain. He doesn't, but it just it does not describe, just like B, it doesn't describe what's happening here. This C is also an error, just like B is an error, but it's an error of some other argument, not our argument. He says it would lower his risk of having an accident. He never said it would prevent me from ever having an accident ever again. Right? So that's why C is not right. D says mistakes a condition sufficient for bringing. This is sufficient necessary confusion, but that doesn't happen here. We see plenty of sufficient necessary confusion questions on LSAT. Right? All A's are B's. I have a B, therefore I have an A. That's a sufficient necessary confusion, right? All A's are B's. All apples are fruits. I have a fruit, therefore I have an apple. Well, that's not true. There are plenty of non-apple fruits out there, but that would be a sufficient necessary mistake. E says relies on a source that is probably not well informed. I mean, we don't. That's not. This again. This will be all of these B, C, D, and E all describe mistakes. They just aren't mistakes that happen here. Where's his source? His research. How can we say his research is probably uninformed. Like, I don't know where he did his research. Did he go ask some random dude off the street? If he did that, then yeah, then that's probably, probably not well informed. But for all we know, his research could have been solid research. You just can't presume that his research was bad just because they didn't talk about where he got his research, right? So that's why E also just does not describe the error that's happening here.